hi there. Pull up a chair, sit down, and let's talk a little bit. This is a special edition of The Evidence, Anomalist 101. I've had a lot of questions, both privately and online. How do we do what we do to be an anomaly hunter? A lot of people just fiddle around with it and never get serious about it, but this is for someone who really wants to be serious about what they're presenting. So I thought I'd go into some of the highlights and some of the pitfalls and some of the other aspects of being a so-called serious anomalist. That doesn't mean people will take you seriously, but presenting your evidence in a way that can be proved, that can be looked at by other eyes, that's very important. So we're going to dive into that today and start out with something that we call the Rorschach Test. Meet Hermann Rorschach. That kind of looks like Brad Pitt back in 1910, right? He was a Swiss psychiatrist, psychoanalyst, and he had a background in art, so that helped him to spur the development of a set of ink blots that were used experimentally to measure various unconscious parts of the subject's personality. I think everyone has seen one of these ink blots at one time or another. The reason we're going through this is because it represents kind of the ground zero or the baseline for a very important aspect of human misperception called pareidolia. Have you ever seen shapes in the clouds? Or have you ever seen faces where you didn't expect them to be? That's pareidolia, just a fancy word for what we're hardwired to do, to recognize faces as part of our survival mechanism. We see them everywhere, even on Mars. Is that really a goblin face? I don't think so. I think it's pareidolia. A leading researcher whom I respect, and I won't mention their name, presented this recently as the mummified remains of a small person. Do you see it here within the target area? This next one is an X3D image of the same anomaly, so get ready to go into viewing mode. This is the power of viewing anomalies in 3D, because it tends to just wipe out any of the 2D pareidolia to which we are all subject. You can clearly see that these are all disparate parts that make up the 2D image. They're separate and they're just rocks. Here's another one I found a few years back in 2D that really does look like a pixie face back there in the rocks. But in 3D you can see that it's a combination of light and shadow and the placement of different rocks in different planes. Einstein once said that in the beginning, God geometrized. That simply means that there's math at the basis of everything we perceive. Look at this picture and look at the pine trees, the mountains, the clouds, the lakeshore and the lake. These are all fractal. They're all based upon fractions divided by fractions. That's why we can get such great CGI to make surroundings and environments, because that's how these things are built. But now look on the lakeshore, and you see those cabins, those buildings there. Those are non-fractal. Those are whole numbers or fractions divided by whole numbers, and they are always, or almost always, an indicator of intelligent agency. Here's a practical example. Say you're just taking a walk along the seashore. You see the waves, you see the rocks, the plants, you see the beach. All of these things look entirely natural, until by chance you stumble upon a gold Rolex lying on the beach. Hello? Now obviously, that Rolex is the result of millions of years of wave action working with the minerals in the water and on the land, and eventually it self-organized and it made this Rolex, and there it is right in front of you. And we both know that's ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. So, what is it? It's a sign of intelligent agency because it's non-fractal. Okay, this shows intelligent agency. This is a manufactured item. It is not a natural item. It is non-fractal. Oh, and by the way, that's mine. I lost it here just recently. Here's an example of the well-known Mandelbrot set, which is a fractal equation. It continues into infinity. Coming up in this next slide is an X3D view of Tom Bent's rendering of a fractal in 3D. That's pretty neat, isn't it? By the way, there are programs that you can get to render fractals in 3D stereo. Just do a Google search and you can start making things like this. But I actually have other things on my mind. So, can non-fractals form in nature? Well, of course they can. We're all familiar with the beautiful cubes that iron pyrite makes, and indeed other minerals. Or we have the beautiful straight lines and right angles that we might find in a topaz crystal. Or we might find octahedrons or other complex geometric shapes forming in fluorite. The point is, these are all natural and mineral structured. And so we look at them in context, which we'll go into a little more in a moment. So, what do you see here? This is a typical blurry, indistinct image posted by an anomalist who seems to see things of all kinds. Some people say, oh, I see a dog. Or, I see a tiny woman wearing a blue scarf and pulling a wagon. Or any number of things. This is pareidolia. It's a Rorschach test. And it is fractal. It's meaningless. Compare that to this one. It's crisp. It's clear. And it's just as non-fractal as they can get. Look at those right angles. And in fact, look at everything in 3D. And you will see intelligent agency spread throughout this image. This is what we're all about here on this channel. Non-fractal imaging in 3D stereo, minus pareidolia, minus Rorschach tests. We're trying to present evidence and show you how you can present evidence as well. So, let's take a moment to do a quick review. The human brain is hardwired to make order out of visual chaos. That's why a Rorschach ink blot is revealing of a person's psychological makeup. Pareidolia is the way our minds deal with visual chaos. We're hardwired to see faces as part of our survival mechanism. Fractal equations form the basis of not only our perceived natural world, but of our consciousness as well. We use fractal equations, which come from a fraction divided into a fraction, to make realistic environments in our CGI movies and video gaming. Non-fractal equations are found in man-made items and come from a whole number divided by a fraction or another whole number. With the exception of certain minerals, non-fractal items nearly always represent clear evidence of intelligent agency. Visual anomalies are not always what they appear to be in a flat, two-dimensional image. When viewed in 3D, many anomalies are solved as being mere arrangements of light, shadow, and placement. Therefore, the most effective way to present convincing evidence based on mathematics rather than personal bias is to show non-fractal anomalies in stereographic 3D. Welcome to Mars X3D. Now, this doesn't mean that you have to be a 3D image guy like myself, but now you do know the pitfalls involved with anomaly hunting. You don't want to work with blurry images where pareidolia is the order of the day. You want to look for clear, crisp, non-fractal images. And now we're going to show you just how to go about that. There are a couple of important steps to consider if you want to be a competent anomalist. They are legwork, extraction, processing, provenance, and presentation. We'll cover each one. Let's start with Neville Thompson's Gigapan of Curiosity Sol 924. You will want to do an organized search of the entire image, either using digital magnification or, like my friend Chris Maroney, a jeweler's loupe. You need to get down and dirty and into the picture itself and start looking for non-fractals. This is the legwork part of things. You have to look at hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands of images to find these anomalies. But if you're passionate about it, it's no big deal. As you can see, I'll be using 3D examples throughout the process here, but the same principles apply towards the two-dimensional images. So I see something strange and probably non-fractal over there on the left. Inside the target area, see the right angles? The odd little bit sticking up there into the air? And bingo, we found something. The first thing you want to do is record the URL for your citation later on when you do compositing. Meanwhile, you want to compose the image and take a digital snap of it in whatever program that works for you. You might also want to do a hyperzoom at this point for later processing. Besides looking for non-fractals, two other things to consider are context, both geologically and positionally. Also, albedo or reflectivity. A good example of geological context might be this one, where we see something white in the target area that totally does not match any of the geology surrounding it. Also, albedo, its reflectivity, is totally different than the geology that surrounds it. As we zoom in, we see that not only is it non-fractal, but its context geologically is out of place and also positionally out of place. Also, its albedo or reflectivity is way different than its surroundings. So, you've done the legwork, located an anomaly, recorded the URL for citation, extracted both a context view and a zoom or magnified view, and now it's time for processing. The prime directive in processing an image is pixel integrity. You work with whatever is actually present in the pixels and never, ever process an image to make it show what you think should be there. I can't tell you how many images I've tossed when it became apparent there wasn't anything worth representing after going through the pixel integrity filter. Unfortunately, there are any number of so-called anomalists on Facebook and YouTube that overuse the burn and dodge tools to misrepresent what is actually there. On YouTube in particular, there are channels that purposely doctor images simply to sensationalize and create clickbait. If you're in it for the money and have no scruples, fire away. You've got plenty of company. But if you're interested in moving the search forward in a legitimate way, then your processing will always represent your concern for reality. The next step is provenance, or citing your work. This allows your viewers to go to the source material for this image, to determine for themselves that what you're presenting is accurate. Citing your work includes which rover and which sol in this case. It also includes the creator of the original image in which you found the anomaly. The final part of citation is to provide a link to the original. I like to use a link shortener so viewers can easily type in the URL and see for themselves where this end product came from. So far, this has represented a fair amount of work. You already know that you can't copyright a NASA image, for example, but because of your work, in order to present this image, the end result now becomes intellectual property, which is why it's important to put a copyright on it. Now, myself and my colleagues around the world have all had our material pirated by unscrupulous individuals many of whom have made a significant amount of money by doing so, using it for books, conference presentations, interviews, and the like. A copyright is no guarantee your work won't be pirated, but it does provide a bit of legal recourse just in case. And if you're interested in branding, you may wish to also include a logo. The final step is presentation. Most people are interested in your speculation about a particular image. A little back and forth conversation will oftentimes reveal aspects of an image you haven't thought of. I know that's true for me. So, since this is a video, this is how I would present this image, bearing in mind that there would also be a context view before this one and a hyperzoom after it. Here we go. Zooming in, we find a bizarre landscape. A number of odd spires soar into the air, not the least of which appears to be a corkscrew chimney on top of a house. Our bedrock bungalow has a flat roof, the edge of which curves out towards us. Two pillars or frames seem to support the roof. Inside and in shadow appears to be some kind of filigree work. Also, some kind of symmetrical structure is to the right of the portico, topped with at least two same-sized spherical bulges. Thank you. Thank you very much. Well, there you have it. Are you an anomalist now? No more than I am. But you know, there are 3 P's that I think about: passion, persistence, and professionalism. I mean, these are things that typify any endeavor. And to me, this anomaly hunting is a real-life science fiction mystery. I find it exciting. I'm passionate about it. It's something I devote an inordinate amount of time to, mostly because I can. I'm retired and I can kind of do things that otherwise I wouldn't. So anyway, I'm happy to help you any way that I can. Send me your questions or comments. And by the way, please subscribe if you have the inclination to do so. I sure appreciate it. And thanks for watching. I'll see you on the next one. Bye for now.